right, welcome back. This is Slim the Kid. This is 2022, and this is a brand new episode, a brand new show, a brand new podcast for all you pro wrestling fans out there. This is Round 2 Wrestling. Welcome back. I am bringing back this show after many demands to bring it back. This is 2022, a brand new year, and we have a lot to talk about. First of all, I'm going to introduce myself. Again, my name is Slim the Kid. I have been a wrestling fan on and off since about 2002. Back then, I was a big fan of the now defunct ECW and WCW and the then called WWF. I followed it quite adamantly when I was a teenager and loved everything about it, and then became disillusioned with the whole product and the fact that there was only one major national promotion, and the simple fact that they embraced and willingly, acknowledged the fact that they were entertainment and changed their name to reflect that. I'm talking about you, WWE. I, again, sort of fell out with the whole pro wrestling thing. I enjoyed watching smaller promotions like Ring of Honor and Impact and New Japan, but these were harder to find and harder to access 15 years ago. Flash forward to 2018, 2019, I get informed by a friend of mine of an upstart promotion called All Elite Wrestling. So much so that it piques my interest and again makes me want to watch professional wrestling. And I am happy to say that I have been watching AEW nonstop since its very first broadcast of AEW Dynamite on TNT. So I am back. I follow the sport. I follow everything that goes with it. I subscribe to newsletters and podcasts and actively follow Pro Wrestling Illustrated and have tons of information and my opinion to share with you, the listener. So, again, let's break down what Round 2 Wrestling will be bringing. We'll be bringing you a little bit of everything in 15-minute segments, something very easy to eat, digest, and then listen to multiple times without having to skip around and find that important spot that you wanted to talk about or listen to. What are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about rumors, weekly results from matches, pay-per-views, whatever happens to be going on that particular week. Pay-per-view results. Rankings, and this is most particular to AEW, where they actually have a ranking system and wins and losses count. Amazing. Highlights and local wrestling promotions and wrestlers will have a featured spot somewhere here on our podcast. We will start that here next week with our next podcast, and we will totally pick out a promotion or a wrestler here at random here in the great state of Michigan that has either been going at it for a while, has caught my attention for something that they have done, or is just an interesting character or fighter in their promotion. So we're going to dive into this episode of Round 2 Wrestling, feet first, and we're just going to go from there. So like I said, this is 2022. We just finished 2021 about a week ago. So we're fairly new to this year. However, we did have a lot happen last year in 2021. One of those things is Pro Wrestling Illustrated comes out with their PWI 500, which are the top 500 wrestlers in the world, according to Pro Wrestling Illustrated. The women's equivalent of the PWI 500, and then the Tag Team 50, which is the top 50 tag teams in the country, in the world, as ranked by PWI. So we will look at the top 5 wrestlers from the men's, women's, and tag team division. And then we will continue this podcast with a little bit of information regarding one of our favorite promotions and a must-watch fight from this previous week that you need to catch. So, starting off in the men's division, the top professional wrestlers in the world, according to Pro Wrestling Illustrated, are in this order. Kenny Omega, the former heavyweight champion of AEW, came in at number 1. Number 2, Roman Reigns, who fights with WWE, also a world champion. number 3, Bobby Lashley, who also fights with the WWE, who lost his heavyweight title to Big E about 2, maybe 3 months ago now. Coming in at number 4 is yet another WWE fighter, Drew McIntyre. I do not know a whole lot about WWE wrestlers because, again, I don't really follow that promotion very closely. But because they are the largest in the world, are a worldwide brand, they're going to be all over the place in rankings and are going to be talked about predominantly since that is the brand right now in the world. Rounding out our top 5 men of 2021 is Kota Ibushi, a New Japan Pro Wrestling prospect who shocked the world this year and rose through the ranks to finish out at number 5. Coming in for the women's division. The women's division is going to be heavily favored by WWE because, let's face it, other promotions do have women's divisions, but they are nowhere near the caliber of WWE. I will give that promotion credit in that aspect. They have pushed women's wrestling to a new level. But I digress when I say AEW isn't too far behind, especially with some of their most recent hires and acquisitions into the AEW family. The number 1 woman of 2021 was Bianca Belair, from WWE. Coming in at number 2, Utami, from a promotion that I am not too familiar with, and I'm just going to give you the abbreviation at this point in time, WWRS. Coming in at number 3 in the world in the women's division is Deonna Purrazzo, an Impact wrestler. Coming in at number 4 is current world champion of AEW, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and followed very closely right behind her is at number 5 is former NWA women's champion Thunder Rosa. A very stacked division in both companies, and by that I mean AEW and WWE. It will be interesting to see what happens in a year and where these women will be. We will finish out with the Tag Team 50. These are the top teams in the entire world, brought to you by Pro Wrestling Illustrated. We are going to go over the top 5. Coming in at number 1, AEW is the best when it comes to tag teams, and that is why the Young Bucks are number 1. They are no longer the world champions. They lost that to the Lucha Brothers at the last pay-per-view, Full Gear, back in November, but still very deserving of the number 1 spot nonetheless. Speaking of Lucha Brothers, they are the number 2 tag team in the world and the current tag team champions of AEW. Coming in at number 3, Dangerous Tekkers from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Coming in at number 4, a WWE staple, and these guys have consistently been in the top 10, it seems like, for the last decade. The Usos, that's right, the Usos come in at number 4 in the tag team division. Rounding out the top 5 tag teams in the world is another tag team that I am unfamiliar with from a promotion that I know very little about. But they were the only women tag team in the top 5. And these guys are very deserving of being in that number 5 spot. They are simply known as ALK and fight out of WWRS. So if you go to your local magazine stand or check out PWI online, you yourself can buy these issues, the PWI 500, the Tag Team 50, and the Women's 150. Be sure to scoop these up and look back at 2021 to look forward to 2022 and see what wrestlers are here and now, what wrestlers are up and coming, and what wrestlers have fallen off. Speaking of wrestling and AEW, my favorite promotion, and personally I think the number 1 promotion in the world today, has 2 shows on national TV, syndicated TV. That is AEW Dynamite, which is on Wednesdays, and AEW Rampage, which is on Fridays. The former AEW Dynamite is moving. That's right, they are going to be on a new station. TNT has been the home of AEW Dynamite for the last 2 years. However, this Wednesday, tomorrow, they will be on TBS. That's right, the Superstation has picked up AEW Dynamite. AEW Rampage on TNT will remain on TNT. So be sure to check out AEW Dynamite on Wednesdays, AEW Rampage on Fridays, WWE Raw on Mondays, and WWE SmackDown on Fridays. Ring of Honor and Impact, you're going to have to check your local listings to see when those shows are being premiered. Speaking of AEW and keeping with that particular theme, our match of the week is an AEW match. For those of you who missed Rampage this past Friday, shame on you. You need to go back and check it out. Our our match of the week brought to you by AEW was a street fight on Rampage, which featured Bunny and Ford taking on the team of Anna Jay and Tay Conte. This was a street fight and a bloody one, to say that. Incredibly brutal. Chairs, thumbtacks, tables, and everything else in between. This one took the show, the best match on the card for that night. We have a judging system on this particular show, and we rank it in bells. 5 bells means it's an absolute perfect match that will be forever watched in the annals of history. 4 means it's a good match, worth your time, and totally worth watching more than once. 3 bells is an average match, something that you might see on a weekly basis. 2 bells is a below average match, maybe a slobber knocker or a very one-sided match, maybe to promote a new incoming fighter or to push a particular storyline. A 1 bell ranking means it's absolute garbage. You would never want to watch it again, and you go out of your way to tell your friends that it's garbage. This match, this street fight on AEW Rampage, was a 4 out of 5 bells. More than worth your time and effort to go check out. All right, that will wrap up this podcast and this edition of Round 2 Wrestling. I am Slim the Kid, and I hope you enjoyed our first podcast of 2022. We will be back next week with another new podcast of Round 2 Wrestling that will bring you up to speed and bring you any and all news and rumors from the world of professional wrestling. I again thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast and look forward to any input or anything, information or pro wrestling wise that you may have to share. Thank you again, and be sure to check out our next podcast next week. This has been Round 2 Wrestling, brought to you by Spreaker and Slim the Kid. Be sure to check us out next week as we bring you another new episode.